Hi, everyone.
Hi, guys. This is Emily G.
I'm Emily Stewart.
And we're really excited to welcome you to webinar 2 of the Water Challenge. We're really excited. We've heard some great innovative ideas from Water Challenge schools that have started creating their grades of green teams, working on their local water supplies and researching more about it. So we're excited today that we'll be covering the next phases of the Water Challenge and then also learning a little bit more about our water supply. We're also excited today to welcome Grace Wu, who's here and joining us from Metropolitan Water District. We had a few questions from our students that she'll be answering as well. Throughout this webinar, if you have any other questions that you'd like to ask Grace or questions about the Water Challenge in general, feel free to comment in the YouTube Live section and we'll respond back to those comments afterward. And as always, if you have any questions at all about the Water Challenge, feel free to contact your advisor at any time as well. So feel free to reach out to myself, Emily, or Jordan, whoever is the advisor for your school, or comment below and we'll answer those comments after the webinar too. We're excited to get started. So now for webinar 2 of the Water Challenge, we're going to be covering, first of all, really where we are in Take Action Week and then some next steps. So right now in the Water Challenge, where we are, we're just going to pull up this presentation, is we're in the stage of really growing our impact. So in the next month, we're going to be looking at how to distribute our Water Challenge forms and plan Water Action Week. So today we'll be going over a challenge overview, where we are. We'll be going over some specifics, details, and resources about water action. We're going to be having that Q&A session with Grace, and then we'll go over some next steps. So for the challenge overview, everyone give yourself a pat on the back. All of our schools so far have created grades of green teams of student leaders and are researching local water supply issues. So that's happened in the last month. And if you're still in the phase where you're creating your grades of green team, no worries at all. Please feel free to reach out to your advisor at any time, and we can also help coach you through a few different ways that your grades of green team can look like. Perhaps that's working just with one classroom of students or working with the group that's already established as well. So give yourself a pat on the back for already creating your grades of green teams and researching local water supplies in the first month of the challenge. Now, this week, we're starting month 2 of the Water Challenge. Woohoo! And the emphasis on month 2 is really Water Action Week. And when we say Water Action Week, we call it Water Action Week because that's the time where we're presenting about water supply, water conservation, and water quality, and then also taking on those Water Challenge forms. And we call it Water Action Week because the Water Challenge forms are designed to be about a week long to measure your personal water use. So if you hear Water Action Week throughout this presentation, we're talking about the presentations and then passing out those Water Challenge forms. And if you're looking for your Water Challenge form, you should have Water Challenge forms in your handbook, and then they'll also on Google Classroom as well. So once we do those Water Challenge forms, we'll then be moving on to month 3 of the Water Challenge after that, which is creating our innovation video and assessing the metrics and the measurement from the Water Action Week and the water forms that all of our students create. So again, our goal for month 2, which is over the next month of the Water Challenge, is to schedule Water Action Week and when you want to distribute your Water Challenge forms. And this can be different depending on your school year. So if you have a spring break coming up or a break in your schedule, you can do your Water Challenge forms really anytime over the course of the next month. We've been talking to some schools that will do it at the beginning of March because of the way that school schedules are looking. Or if you'd like to start that a little bit earlier and do it in the next few weeks, that is totally fine as well. So just the overall goal of the next month is really then presenting about water to your school or your classroom in some capacity, and then passing out those Water Challenge forms and collecting them back afterward. So now I'm going to turn it over to Emily, and she's going to talk a little bit of really some of our best practices and tips to make Water Action Week a success and how you can really take it to the next level if you're ready.
So in the first part of the water challenge, as Emily G said, it was really about you guys, your green team, learning about your water issues, getting your team together and really educating yourselves. And so now we're in that part of the water challenge that's really about creating that ripple effect of change. So through the water challenge forms, by taking them home and getting others to participate, you're really bringing that awareness of water issues and those action steps that people can take to conserve water and protect water quality back to your families. And by incorporating those classroom presentations into your school and also handing out forms to your classmates, you're also bringing it home to your school community and, even if you're ready, your wider community as well. So it's really about creating this ripple effect of change. So we have some best practices and tips for how to make your is to make it visible. So let your whole campus know, or the classroom that's participating know, that Water Action Week is happening and why it's important. So you could use posters, you could use announcements. We have an announcement flyer in your Eco Starter Kit, also available on Google Classroom. You can use that Water Challenge banner to encourage others to make water conservation pledges. And if you have a social media channel and you want to share what you're doing, or you want to spread the word on your own school social media about Water Action Week, feel free, and also tag Grades of Green so that we can help spread the word as well. Make Water Action Week desirable. So if you want others to join into your water awareness movement, you have to make it fun and exciting. So some ideas that we have and that other schools have done in the past are to create prizes. So for example, if you're involving multiple classrooms or grades in Water Action Week, you might offer extra recess for the classroom that hands in the most water challenge forms, or other fun prizes like a popsicle party or a free dress day. And also, when you've gotten your team together and you've handed out those forms and you've collected them back, make sure to celebrate your successes. So celebrate with your green team so that it's fun and you can get others involved. And then when you're making those presentations about water, make sure that you explain the why. Why is it important to conserve water, protect water quality? Because that'll really give others an idea of why they should participate, why it's so important, and how they can make a difference. Because everyone really wants to make a difference and wants to be part of the change and make a positive impact. And also in that presentation, you want to offer a clear call to action. So you've presented these water issues, how others can get involved, and then what's that next action step? And in this case, in Water Action Week, it's taking home those forms and completing them and handing them back in. So the resources that we have available in your Eco Starter Kit and on Google Classroom are some presentation templates for those classroom or assembly-wide presentations. There's a level 1 and a level 2, depending on the age level that you're presenting to. And these are customizable templates, but if you have your own ideas and want to get creative, feel free to make your own presentation script. And at the end of that presentation, you'll be saying to your audience, that they should get involved by handing out those water challenge forms. And so make sure to pass out those forms and collect them back, and let everyone know that you're presenting to where they should hand them in after they're completed, so that you can collect them all and measure the results at the end of the water challenge to see how much water you saved or how much water quality you protected.
Cool. So now we're excited to talk to Grace Wu, who will be joining us about talking a little bit more about water quality and water conservation as well. So Grace is joining us from Metropolitan Water District in California. Grace, thank you so much.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here today.
Thank you. We're really excited to talk to you. And before we get started, we were wondering if you could say a little bit about your job and your background and your passion for water.
Of course. So I studied environmental science and engineering at UCLA. I remember when I first started my degree, I really wanted a job that would let me have an impact on the environment, and also thinking, long term in terms of like the sustainability for the future. I was really interested in water, although I didn't really know what specifically to focus on within the environment. But I started learning that water is a huge topic in all of our lives. We all need water, and especially because there was a drought in Southern California recently, which you may have heard about, I realized that this is a field where I could really have an impact. So that's kind of how I started getting interested in the water field. I've been working here and working on a lot of projects related to water conservation. So we get to do projects with some companies that help them find ways to save water. We've done projects with SeaWorld where they changed out their bathroom fixtures to flush with salt water from the Shamu tank instead of fresh water. So there are a lot of cool projects that we get to work on, encouraging people to save water. We also have a lot of rebate programs too, which I can talk a little bit more about later. But these are all just ways to help people in Southern California get involved in saving water. It really is something that we want to get people mindful of and interested in, because not everybody thinks about water conservation. You just turn on the tap and the water comes out. So it's really great that that there are ways for people to get more involved and just to spread the word about water conservation.
Awesome. I love it. Well, thank you so much. We have a few different questions from some of our Water Challenge schools and students that we'd love to kind of do a quick Q&A and see what your thoughts are on them. The first one is from students at Bancroft Middle School. They asked, how effective are water purifiers?
That's a great question. It really depends on where you live and also the type of purifier that you purchase. So if you go to the store and you look for one, usually on the box, they have a list of the different contaminants or chemicals that the filter will take out of the water. And so if the filter may include chemicals that your water actually doesn't have. So at that point, you may not need to buy a filter like that because it's filtering out a lot of extra things that you don't even need to be concerned about. But also, there are other filters where you'll find something that you may want to get out of your water. Excuse me. So then in that case, you would be able to have a water filter that would not only help your water be an improved quality, but also taste better as well.
And so Grace, just as a quick follow-up question, what are some of the main contaminants that are filtered out of water that we should be aware of or concerned about?
That's a great question. So sometimes you may have concerns about lead, depending on where you live as well. This is a very region-specific issue. A lot of times, if the piping that the water comes through is old, then there is a higher chance of having lead in the water. You also have other contaminants such as like nitrates, which come from runoff in agriculture. And so those types of things you want to be able to check for to see if they're filtered in the tap before it comes to you. There are also other contaminants like hopefully not any heavy metals, but those are other things to be aware of. And there are filters available that filter those things out too.
And if any students would like to check their water quality, is there any way that you suggest starting to check water quality or monitoring what water looks like in their area?
Definitely. So you would want to check with your water retailer, your local water retailer. So whoever you pay your water bill to, you just look at the top of that and you'll find the name of the retailer there. And what you can do is you can check their website online. Most of the time they have water quality reports on their websites. So with their water quality reports, you can then look at what percentages of chemicals were in the water, if there were any concerns recently, or just to kind of track the overall quality. So those things are usually available online.
That's great advice. Thank you. And the second question, I loved this question, was, can you tell us a little bit of the difference between hot water and cold water? And does it take more energy to heat water when we use it?
That's also a great question. I like this question because it talks about how water is not just an issue by itself, but that there are also other things involved when you think about water conservation. So energy is a very closely related topic. In the water world, we call this the water energy nexus, which basically talks about how, if you use energy to heat water, then that's going to consume more resources. But also at the same time, if you conserve water, then that will also lower your energy consumption. So in terms of actually heating the water, there is energy requirement to that. So for example, if you think about your home, about 18% of water heating in the home is used for home water energy use. And so if you take the example of like taking a shower, you could use about 17,000 British thermal units to heat your water to take a hot shower. A British thermal unit is basically a measure of how how much energy is required to raise the temperature of a pound of water by 1 degree. And so you can see that if you are able to take a shorter shower, then that will save you more energy. At the same time, if you install a more energy and water efficient shower head that uses less water, then that will also reduce your energy consumption. So there are a lot of different ways to think about energy in relation to water.
Oh, I love that. So when we're talking about our water challenge forms and water action week, it sounds like when we're conserving water or helping to reduce the amount of water that we're using, it's also helping conserve other natural resources as well. And there's even a bigger impact on the environment.
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Those are some great points, and also in case Grades of Green students that are listening too, that could perhaps spark some cool innovation ideas for final projects. If there's any energy and water tie-ins, I think that's a really unique perspective and one that could be a great final project for that video and PSA at the end. Cool, thanks, Grace. The next question is, where does our water end up when it leaves a storm drain?
Yeah, that's also a great question. So it's funny because storm drains look like just a hole in the ground, so you really don't know where it ends up running off to later. A lot of times the storm drains will empty out to the nearest major water source. So that could be either a river nearby, it could be the ocean. It really depends on where you live. Here in LA, a lot of them do end up leading to the ocean, which is why after a major storm event, there are a lot of concerns about water quality in the ocean. So you might hear advisories in, for example, the beach about how you should not swim right now because it's really unsafe. And that's because as the water runs off the surface of the streets and it picks up all these contaminants, then it causes lots of bacteria to grow, and it's just not a good water quality situation. And so all of these storm drains, you know, they seem like they're unrelated to each other, but in reality, the water does pick up a lot of things as it enters them. And so whatever comes into the storm drain, it also ends up in the water source that it empties out into. And so that's another water quality concern.
Interesting. That is a really interesting point. And also, as we're talking about how water plays into communities and your community impact on water, I think that's a really interesting perspective and kind of a segue into this next question. And I love this one as well, because I think that this shows that some students are looking at water conservation, water quality in the community level as well. So this question was, what kind of businesses are the biggest consumers of water? So when we're talking about now looking at our own local water supplies and how other community members tie in, any advice or specific businesses that we may be able to reach out to as students to make even a bigger impact?
Yeah, that's also a really good question. So in the US, I was looking at some of the statistics from the EPA. There's about 40% of the total freshwater consumption that goes to power generation, actually. So that's a huge consumer of water. If you think about also as a whole, in terms of like different businesses and sectors that use water, irrigation takes about 37% here in the US. And so irrigation could be part of agriculture, which is the people that grow the crops to produce into food that we eat. And so a lot of these water consumers, you may not think about them on a daily basis because you don't necessarily see the agriculture, you don't necessarily see the power electricity generation, but those are some big consumers of water. And in addition to that, you can also think about some industrial uses too. So there are, for example, manufacturing companies, chemical companies, they use water in their operations as well. If you want to start thinking about how to reach out to these different sectors and be involved in conservation, you can start by looking at just what's in your neighborhood. If there are any big businesses, if you know of any companies that are, you know, growing crops or nurseries or anything like that, you can also try reaching out to them and, you know, ask them just what are you doing to save water? What are some things that you want to start thinking about for the future in terms of water conservation? So if you want to start with your community, then definitely looking around and seeing what's there and trying to find out more about maybe how you can help them too.
Oh, I love that one. And our 2017 Water Challenge winning school is St. Rosa in Uganda, and they created a really great drip irrigation system. So I think that speaks to your point as well about the power of kind of assessing local water needs and then kind of coming up with creative solutions. And any other grades of green schools that are listening right now, St. Rosa, you may see them on the Google Classroom and responding back as well. They're a great mentor school, a great buddy school, and if you're interested in learning more about their irrigation system, I know they'd love to hear any questions about that as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to about their irrigation system or irrigation in general, feel free to add that to the Google Classroom, and we can pair you up with St. Rosa as well to see how they did that and some tips that they have specific to irrigation as well. Thanks. And then the very last question, and this one goes back again to water quality, is it safe to drink the water that comes out of our tap? How healthy is that?
Yeah, that's also a really good question. Here in Southern California, we do have standards for our drinking water so that it is safe to drink when it comes out of the tap. But this will also be something that varies by your region as well, depending on where you live. So once again, going back to the local water agency, if you're able to get in contact with them and look at their water quality reports, that will give you a better sense of the quality of the water that's coming out of the tap. But that's a really good question.
Oh my gosh. Well, this has been really great. Grace, thank you so much for helping answer some of our students' questions. And also thank you so much for kind of putting that perspective of why this is so important on a local and a global basis together. Grades of Green schools that are listening to, I think a lot of those facts and the ideas that Grace brought up could be really great to put in presentations that you're working on and incorporate that into the water challenge forms as well. So Grace, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to go over just a few next steps for our water challenge schools. And water challenge schools that are listening, if you have any questions that you'd like to follow up with Grace about, feel free to, again, put them in the comment section or email your advisor and we can send them over to Grace as well. Thanks, Grace.
Thanks, Grace.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. So thinking about some next steps for the water challenge. So for this month, so for the next 2 to 3 weeks, the goals would be to select the dates and schedule that Water Action Week. And schedule your classroom presentations, or if you're presenting to as an assembly to a grade or to your whole school, scheduling that assembly. And creating a plan to distribute and collect those water challenge forms. And then if you want to go above and beyond, we would love for you to share your goals for water challenge presentations and forms and best practices with your buddy school, either on email or on Google Classroom. But selecting those dates for Water Action Week and making that plan to distribute the forms and collect them and make those presentations are really the priority for this month. So on the horizon, once the presentations have been completed, the forms have all been collected back, and you're starting to analyze those metrics of how much water you conserved, how your campus has worked to improve water quality, then the next step is focusing on that innovation idea for your Grades of Green team. And so some of our schools are actually already thinking about those innovation ideas and brainstorming them. So we thought that'd be fun to just share with you what some of you guys have already begun thinking about. So at Western Center Academy in California, their innovation idea brainstorm has been about reducing single-use plastics because they're really concerned about keeping the ocean clean of plastic debris, which is really harmful to marine life. So that's an awesome idea. Another innovation idea from St. Rosa, which we had a shout out to them earlier in the webinar, but one of their ideas is water harvesting. So through rain barrels and through other collection systems, because water scarcity is an issue that they really want to focus on. And then Francis Scott Key Elementary in Maryland, their focus is on protecting water quality because their goal is to protect the biodiversity in the Chesapeake Bay watershed because they have all of these amazing plants and animals and they want to make sure that the water is clean so that biodiversity can be preserved. So these are really great starting points for innovation ideas, and we really are excited to see what you all come up with once that second phase of the water challenge is completed. So if you have any questions about how you might approach those presentations or handing out the forms, or if you feel lost in the water challenge, you don't know what your next step should be, or if you don't have a green team together, please, please, please email your Grades of Green advisor. We're here as a resource, and no question is too small, and we're always happy to get on the phone with you or to schedule another Google Hangout to check in with your team. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, Water Challenge Schools. We're excited to see you soon.